Now let's have some real fun with single cell arrays. We want to find out how many characters are in this range of each of these. Traditionally, I'd come over here and I'd say, what is the length of A5, and what is the length of A6, and so forth. And when I get done, I would sum those up. We'll do the same thing here. You may want to try and do this on your own first each time we do these. That way you'll know whether you already know this concept. So I'll put equals sum, and I want the length, and put all the text items here, the array of cells, Control, Shift, Enter. So it's taken the length of each one of those cells and then summed them up. Now let's look at summing the three smallest values. Here I have an array. If I highlight it, you can see it's called data. And I say, give me the smallest item of data, that is a comma 1. Also comma 2, the second smallest, and comma 3, the third smallest. And then let's sum those up. Go ahead and try that one. How did you do? Let me help you a little on this one. Will equal sum of, and it was small, and we have the data, comma. Now putting in the numbers was probably your hardest part. Remember, we can create an array on the fly, so I'll do that. Open curly brackets, 1, 2, 3. It doesn't matter if it's commas or semicolons. Close the curly brackets, and then my parens, and hit Control, Shift, Enter. There we've got the same results all in one cell. Let's next count how many cells have text. Here we're looking at these cells, and I can clearly see right now there's 5, but we don't know that until we actually do this, if there happens to be hundreds or thousands or even millions of cells that we're looking at. The suggestion above is that it's wise often to use an if function nested in the sum function, and we can do all sorts of things. Let's try that. I'll say equals sum, and then we'll say if. What would tell us if a cell has text in it rather than a number? That's right, you may be aware there is a function we have called isText. So I'll say isText and highlight all these cells. Now, if that is true, what do I want to put in? Well, if it is text, I'll put a 1 in there so we can sum how many have it. If it's false, I'll put in a 0. Close paren and Control, Shift, Enter. You can see the results. We have 5 cells with text in them. This formula is very explicit as to what is happening, but there's another formula I like to use. That is equals sum, and this time I'm going to just put isText. I also want to show you this because there's another concept I want you to learn. So now let's highlight the array. Now I'm making a mistake here on purpose to show you something. If I do just this, I hit Control, Shift, Enter, I get 0. Why do I get 0? Remember, if we don't understand why we're getting something, we can evaluate the formula. And notice it returns all these true, false, false, true, false, and so forth. But I try to sum up true falses, and sum doesn't know how to add up trues and false, and so I get a 0. But there is a trick that we can do that will turn those trues and false into 1s and 0s. That is, if we try to do math with a true and false, then Excel will try to turn a true into a 1 and a false into the 0. So let's do it. There's a couple of ways. We could either multiply both of them. So after we've got the text or not, true or false, we could multiply them by 1, or we could add a 0. I will add a 0 here, and Control, Shift, Enter. We got the right number. Now let's evaluate the formula. You can see as we get the true and false, then add the 0 to each item, it now is 1, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, so forth. And summing can work very well on that. Let's move on down. Here we have an example of how you can eliminate intermediate formulas. The normal way might take 6 cells. For these 5 individuals, we have a post-test and a pre-test. Well, if you want to get the average improvement, you could take the post-test minus the pre-test for each individual, and then simply say, what is the average of that difference? Next, you might have a little bit more insight and say, well, I could just simply take the average of all the post-tests, take the average of all the pre-tests, and then take the difference, and I would get the same number. We are now going to do it in one cell alone. Why don't you try it first? Okay, hopefully you said we want the average, and I want the difference between the post and pre, so I'll take the post minus the pre-test and Control-Shift-Enter, and we have in one cell what you had in several cells otherwise. It's a lot cleaner, and it was faster.